GlobeTrotting is closing in on 40,000 subscribers, so do be sure to subscribe to the channel. When aircraft programs exit the industry, dwindling interest typically is the natural progression that leads to this. While the Airbus A380 experienced something very similar, it also very much saw a singular airline's decision really dictate the program's fate. The Airbus A380 met its demise when Emirates cancelled a significant portion of the remaining orders it had for the type. Orders that at the time actually ensured that production would continue for the program for many years to come. While Emirates contributed to the program's shutdown, many would argue that this was a long time in the making. Regardless of Emirates' decision, their choice just was merely the final nail in the coffin, which had already seen many nails inserted. Emirates has been one of the most prominent supporters of the A380 since its inception. You'd argue, though, that their persistent interest in an A380neo type plane that continues to this day highlights that. The Dubai-based airline had placed orders for over 100 units, making up, really evidently, a substantial portion of the backlog for this plane. By 2019, though, Emirates was facing a changing aviation landscape that had been creeping up on them for some time. The Dubai-based airline cut orders to just 123 total units. This was, yes, a painful decision for all parties involved, but what it really saw Emirates do was revise its commitment to future flying, with, at this point, the acquisition of the A330neo and Airbus A350. It is safe to say that in recent years, the Emirates order book has seen many changes, announcements, cancellations, and so much more on top of that. So you'd be forgiven if you've maybe been struggling to keep track of what aircraft they have on their order book, what variants used to be and are now, and so much more. But the premise is, Emirates will move forward with a different but still similar fleet strategy. While Emirates had supported the A380 for many years with also consistent top-up orders and a solid commitment to flying it right around the world, the airline does operate currently a very, very straightforward strategy when it comes to the fleet. In fact, it's actually a welcome change from some of the other major airlines right around the world that have almost every single flying aircraft type available. Emirates' strategy is to operate a fleet of aircraft that is not only young, but also modern. The thing is, the A380 isn't getting any younger in any regard, and while Emirates' newest units are, say, only a couple of years old, their oldest ones are getting on now, and the persistent shifts in trends in the aviation world meant that Emirates did need to consider potential alternative options to bring it forward as a company and allow it to compete with not just existing carriers but also emerging ones. This ultimately was a hard decision for an airline that has been one of the few to make the A380 work in their day-to-day operations, and actually on a substantial scale in comparison to your other operators. Despite cancelling orders and ending the program, their commitment to the series exists today and will likely see them still retaining the world's largest passenger plane into the early 2040s. This is permitting any drastic changes in the industry and also the economic landscape. Remember, we did see the emergence of the global pandemic, which completely changed aircraft within airlines operations and so much more. But the likelihood that Emirates will be the last airline operating the A380, you could argue, is pretty high. Emirates really decided to reevaluate its fleet strategy around the period of the A380 cancellation. It focused on a more diversified fleet that included wide-body aircraft from multiple aircraft types. This shift has really reflected a growing trend among airlines right around the world to adapt to the ever-changing dynamics of air travel, and also catering to the many different passenger segments that exist, which Emirates believes there's a lot of potential to seize in the long-term future. Specifically, their chairman and chief executive noted that by adding other aircraft types to their order book with alternating capabilities, it means in the future that they can be deployed across a host of missions, and also relieve pressure on some of their existing wide-body planes. This could be to, say, meet seasonal traffic demand on a route, or maybe a market that presents unique opportunities. However way you choose to analyze it, one thing that really is highlighted is the hopeful nature nature that the airline has, and how these multiple new aircraft that it has selected to welcome on will really reshape how Emirates works, but still keep it lean, young, and so much more of its core strategies that it has stuck with for so long and achieved so much success with. The brilliance of an aircraft like the A350 or the 787 does mean that it can fly on markets where maybe the A380 wouldn't perfectly work, ensuring that a watchful eye is also kept on competition and complacency doesn't arrive as another vital part of the makeup of Emirates. Turkish Airlines is a carrier that I very much like to use as an example. They're expanding rapidly in the market, and thanks to the capabilities of next-generation fleets, are rivaling Emirates on certain routes. While they have outlined ambitious growth plans, your Emirates, Qatar Airways, and such in markets nearby really need to keep a close eye and ensure that their established platform is built upon to their advantage. Dumping some Airbus A380s, while a tough decision, ultimately made sense for Emirates. While the aircraft excels in capacity for the airline into slot-restricted airports, it remains not the most ideal plane for certain airports, as I touched on, with maybe limited infrastructure to accommodate such the massive aircraft. And yes, that is where Emirates has its 777s, but they'd like to fly to more markets and increase frequencies. Emirates has already outlined its intent in the future to begin seizing these markets that harbour either seasonal opportunities or just generally fantastic market growth. Another consideration is the already significant presence the A380 has at the Dubai-based airline. With over 100 units to its name and at its peak 120 planes flying, many have highlighted that maybe the important remaining orders that were cancelled could have been surplus to requirements at Emirates, and these aircraft that were initially on the order books could actually be better deployed as other aircraft types, and therefore allow them to, as a common theme in this video, be visible in other alternative markets. Emirates truly had the final say in the story of the A380, as when they announced the cancellation of orders and there was already a lack of interest for a plane of this size, Airbus had to make the tough decision to shut up shop in 2021. Airbus hasn't shown any interest in an A380neo, which is something Emirates has been vocal about, but for now, let's enjoy these quad-engined aircraft while they still remain, because depending on how the trends of the aviation industry continue, there will be one day where quad-engined aircraft will be very difficult to spot as aviation enthusiasts, let alone attempting to fly on, as the 747 passenger planes begin to be retired and the freighters reign supreme. Thank you very much for tuning into this video. If you have any thoughts on Emirates' 2019 order cancellation for the A380 and the reasons behind it, as well as a general shift in strategy to more aircraft types, you can let me know down below in the comments. Thank you so very much for your support here on the channel. It really does mean a lot. Take care, do also be safe, and I'll see you next time.